Calls are growing for a Tory MP accused of watching pornography in Parliament to be named and expelled from the party.
The allegation comes amid a series of damaging claims about the behaviour of MPs in the Commons. We're joined now by the Shadow Work and Pension Secretary, Jon Ashworth. Very good morning to you. Jonathan, you're a really experienced MP. You've been in the Commons day in, day out for many, many years. But even for you, is it a surprise or is it not when, a group of, at this point, Tory female MPs come together and it's described as a bloodletting? They are so angry. They've got story upon story upon story, and one of which is this about an MP, a Tory MP, watching pornography in the House of Commons. It comes after, obviously, what was said about Angela Rayner, comparing her to Basic Instinct. And just to be clear, there are a couple of Labour MPs, we're told, who are also facing sexual misconduct allegations. This feels widespread. Is it toxic in there for women?
It's shocking. I mean, I am shocked. What that place, there is misogyny, there is sexism, there's also bullying in that place. It's a very hierarchical place. I think all of us, it's incumbent upon all of us to do something about the culture of that place. This person who's been watching porn, this person shouldn't be an MP. Watching porn in the House of Commons chamber, for goodness sake, they should be suspended from the Tory party. I don't understand what's going on there. It may well be that people feel that they can't name people, and if they feel that they can't name people, I think that tells you something about the culture of the place, because people feel like if they give more details that they'll be ostracised or intimidated. This has got to change. It really has got to change, and we've all got to play our part in changing it. Because I still believe, and maybe I'm naive, I come on Good Morning Britain a lot, and I have done it over the years, and some of your viewers will agree with me. You'll have other viewers who think I talk rubbish. That's the nature of being a politician. But I still naively believe that the majority of us go into Parliament to try and do good, to try and do our best for the British people, to put public service first.
That's what that's what I would have expected. That's what I think most of us like to think, Jonathan Ashworth. But can you just explain, because the other thing that doesn't make sense to me is, I understand that you have your phones in the chamber and many people will tweet, write notes, I'm sure, about what they're hearing, but the idea that people would be able to take their phone out and start watching anything that's going to distract them from the debate that is happening, the laws that are being discussed, the important issues that are being discussed, seems absolutely peculiar, regardless of what it is that they're watching. And, of course, no one should be watching the content of what he was accused of watching. But is that the case? You can pull your phone. Have you seen people sort of doing that? Why is that culture being allowed to be promoted in any way?
I don't see how you can be... what you can do, you can take your phone in. The rules have changed now, because a lot of us do our emails on our phones, and also Twitter now, because so much breaking news happens on Twitter. If something's happened in the news and you see it on Twitter, perhaps that helps you in the debate. You might want to jump up and say, "I've just seen that this has happened on ITV News today. What do you think of this, Minister?" And of course, now on Twitter, when the news shares clips, and I'm sure Good Morning Britain may well share a clip of me doing this interview in about 15 minutes or so. So sometimes you see the news clips, but I cannot understand how anybody is watching this sort of content, and it's deeply inappropriate. No, it's not just inappropriate in the House of Commons, it's inappropriate in any workplace. Yeah, and
obviously you want things to be handled well over this sort of thing. But the Sunday Times reported that 3 Conservative cabinet ministers and 2 Labour shadow cabinet ministers have been referred to a parliamentary watchdog that deals with complaints against MPs over allegations of sexual misconduct. What can you tell us about how that's being handled in the Labour Party?
Well, I only know what I've read in the Sunday Times.
Have you asked Keir Starmer about it, about who they are and what's happening with them?
Well, the Labour Party have said that if people have got complaints about individuals, they would encourage them to come forward, and those complaints will be investigated. But I think part of the problem with the culture of the House of Commons is people feel intimidated from making more specific complaints about individuals, because they believe that that will hinder their own advancement, their own careers. I mean, this is about sexual harassment or misogyny, but I also know, for example, I have over the years had, for example, MP staff approach me about MPs who they think have been bullying them, but feel that if they put in a complaint, that somehow their own careers would be negatively affected. This is an awful culture. It's got to change.
So what can we do then? Because, you know, as you said at the start of this interview, there's sexism, there's misogyny, as you've just highlighted there, and you've seen people talk to you about this. There is bullying. How does it change? What things need to be put into practice to ensure that actually that culture changes dramatically and it becomes essentially somewhere where people can go and do those things that you want? They can go and try and make a difference for their communities, for the country.
Where women want to go into politics.
And they'll feel safe.
You know, young women would want to go into politics.
I know, and well, I mean, we do have this independent complaints body which looks into things now, so that is an advance. That is definitely an advance. But I think politics will change when we get people from all walks of life getting involved in politics. And, you know, I want Good Morning Britain viewers, if they think they want to be a Labour MP or even a Conservative MP or if they think they can make a difference, they should get involved in politics, because that place should represent the real lives, the real concerns, the real issues of the British people. We are the British people's Parliament. And when you look at what's going on, I mean, look, you know, the pensioners have just had the biggest real terms cut in the pension for 50 years. You've got families in work turning up at food banks, right? These are the issues that Parliament should be focused on, and these are the issues that should have that should be occupying our days, every moment in Parliament at the moment. And we would be better at representing the British people if we get better at allowing ordinary people to become MPs. So we're not imposing these big cuts on pensioners. So families aren't making a choice between feeding their meters or feeding their children. So that's how we change it. Let's open up politics and get more people from all walks of life getting involved. It shouldn't be this closed club.
It's interesting you talk about, there should be other things to talk about. The Daily Mail have led with what they call an exclusive, saying that, you know, a Tory MP has written about Keir Starmer and Partygate. We've seen those pictures before. He was cleared by the Met, wasn't he, of breaking any rules and wasn't fined. Do you think there's any... what do you make of this, saying that the police are now opening or looking into potentially re-looking at whether Keir Starmer broke lockdown rules?
Well, I mean, he didn't break the rules, and of course the police have looked into it and have said he didn't break the rules. And I don't think it's comparable, actually, to Downing Street, where not only has Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak had fines. I mean, they've overseen, I think, a building that's now had 50 fines. And of course, they were the people, Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson, who wrote the rules, imposed the rules. And for many of us, it was an absolutely awful time. We couldn't see many of our extended families as people who couldn't go to funerals. You know, weddings had to be rearranged. Yeah. People couldn't be at the birth of their child and so on. I don't think it's comparable, but the police have said that he didn't break the rules, and I don't think he did break the rules. It's a wide-ranging interview this morning with lots of different things to talk to you about. This probably isn't something that you were expecting to talk about, but we are going to be doing a debate later on in the programme about whether teachers should have a duty to tell parents if they think that a child that they're looking after and teaching is transgender or is non-binary. It's interesting because I think that the Tory party are now coming out more strongly in one view, where Rishi Sunak has said that biology is critically important in gender identity debates. The Labour Party is still very much struggling to answer these sorts of questions. Keir Starmer, you know, said it was wrong to say that only a woman could have a cervix. He couldn't answer the question about whether a woman can have a penis. I mean, these sorts of things. Why are Labour struggling so much on this debate? Well, I don't think Labour are struggling. I mean, obviously, biology is biology, and when it comes to you know, defining a woman. But I think we've also got to recognise that in society that there are some people whose gender identity does not match the biology that they were born with. They have gender dysphoria, and those people who are marginalised, bullied, often feel ostracised. Those people need to be supported as well. And Rishi Sunak has suggested that women's sports, lavatories and prisons should be female only, and by that he means biologically female only. Is that... where are Labour on that? Well, since we've had the Equality Act now, since I think 2008, 2009, something like that, we've had the Gender Recognition Act for much longer. The women-only spaces are allowed in this legislation that went through Parliament 10, 15 years ago. It's only, I don't understand why. It's just, you know, we've had people who undergo gender reassignment for many, many years in this country. I don't understand why, when Parliament has debated these issues 15 years ago and put in place legislation, this has suddenly become a controversial issue. We have single-sex spaces in society and legislated for. So, but also, they are people who, as I say, whose gender identity does not match the sex that they were born with.
Do you agree?
And those people need to be supported.
Do you agree with Nadine Sahawi, though, when it comes to the subject of teachers at school maybe knowing that a child is transgender or non-binary, that they should have a duty to tell the parents of that child?
Well, I think most teachers will act responsibly in that circumstance, and many parents will want to be involved with their children and supporting their children. So I think it's a bit of a red herring. You always do get, though, in society, issues where the relationship is broken down between parents and child, and there's always procedures in place to support children in those circumstances. But you know, teachers, I'm sure, will talk to their parents in these circumstances anyway.
But to keep it on an individual basis rather than making it an overall duty. OK, thanks so much, Jon Ashworth, for joining us on the programme this morning.